So this is a project I actually did back in fall of 2021. It's 2 Bassett Duncan 5 style drum tables. They are from my home. We purchased them new in the early 90s. They've survived our 4 children and then their children. These once beautiful end tables look tired. They need a refresh. Let's get started. First off, I removed all the hardware. There wasn't much. The table had brass caps at the end of each foot, and both drawers had a pull, so I removed those and set them aside for later. I started my flip with my usual Rust-Oleum spray degreaser and soapy water, cleaning them inside and out. During the cleaning, I discovered a few issues. There were some nicks, scratches, and one leg was chipped. I used wood putty to fill those in. There's no need to color match to the stain because I'll be painting everything but the top. Older furniture like this frequently has very thick, heavy lacquer finishes, and these tables were no exception. I plan to strip the old finish off the tops and restain the tables a lighter color with a satin top coat. Thing is, I had never stripped a piece with a veneer top before, especially one with a parquet pattern like this one. I was hesitant to use a chemical stripper because I was concerned about the stripper seeping underneath the seams and loosening the adhesive holding the veneer down, because that would be very bad. So I started with hand sanding. Now, I'm not a young woman, and I could tell this was going to take more time than I probably have left on this earth. So I switched to an electric sander using a higher grit. I think I used a 180 to be cautious of blowing through the veneer. That ended up being too tedious as well. The thick finish was just gunking up my sandpaper. So I took a deep breath and broke out my multi-strip chemical stripper. It worked like a charm. The old finish came right off. I scraped it all off and then wiped the tops off with mineral spirits. This cleans any residual old finish, plus it neutralizes the chemical stripper so it won't interfere with your new stain or top coat. I let this dry and carefully sanded both tabletops to prepare them for stain. After wiping both tables back of all their sanding dust using a damp microfiber cloth, I stained both tables with 2 coats of Minwax wood stain in the color mocha. Here's the first coat. Now here's the second coat. I also found this more serious issue. It's definitely more structural than cosmetic. When I turned one of the tables upside down, I discovered that the support plate that attached the tabletop to the base was cracked. Possibly a child tried to climb on it, or it could be that someone pushed on it too hard to assist themselves in rising from a seated position. There's a number of possibilities, but either way, it'll have to be addressed. I don't plan to keep these tables. I think I might sell them, so I have to repair this. I unscrewed the damaged support plate from the base and put all the screws in a Ziploc baggie to reuse later. I removed the base and then unscrewed the support plate from that base. I actually found that there were only 3 screws holding the plate on instead of 4, so I'll be fixing that later. There was dried glue where the base was glued to the top. I used a chisel to remove that, so when I glue the new support plate on, that old glue won't interfere with the bond. My husband cut and routed a new support plate for me. It would look too much like an obvious repair if this was just raw wood, so I sanded the new plate just a little bit to open up the grain and get it ready for stain. Then I stained it using Minwax's dark walnut and set it aside to dry. I'll reassemble it and reattach it to the top later. Moving on to the next phase, paint, but first the dreaded prep work. I scuff sanded both bases, then I sanded the drawer fronts, and then I sanded the sides of the table to get rid of that slick surface so my primer would adhere properly. I scuff sanded the detached base holding it on my lap. The other one was easier to handle, and I made a mess of myself. I wiped all the pieces down with a damp towel to remove all the sanding dust. I primed everywhere I planned to paint using Kills primer. After the first coat dried, I came back and found this. Wood tannins had bled through my primer in a few places. This is why you should use primer, especially if you'll be using a light colored paint. So I lightly sanded to smooth my primer and then applied a second coat. No bleed through on the second round. Kills leaves a slightly rough texture, so I smoothed it using a 220 grit sanding sponge to get ready for my paint. My paint choice for these tables is Dixie Belle's chalk paint in the color Drop Cloth. It's a beautiful cream color and goes on like butter. No brush strokes at all. I mist my brush and the piece occasionally to keep the paint wet and my brush moving smoothly. I apply 2 coats, sanding lightly in between. Of course, there were 2 tables, but I only bothered filming the one. Now it's time to reassemble the table with the broken support. I re-screwed the support plate to the base. Sorry, I have to say I'm still working on figuring out how to set up camera angles. So unfortunately what you've got is a lovely shot of the back of my head and my shoulder, but I assure you that is what I'm doing. And I'm using 4 screws instead of just 3. Next, I flip the tabletop upside down on a blanket to protect it and reattach the base. I loaded Minwax's water-based polyurethane in a satin sheen into my HVLP paint gun and spray my top coat to both tables. I spray 2 coats on the body and 4 coats on the top, as always sanding lightly in between. So here they are so far. They look nice, but need a little zhuzhing up. Using Dixie Belle's Best Dang Wax in brown and a wax brush, I added antiquing wax around the edges of the drawers and the table, as well as the details on the base, like the fluting on the legs, and wiped it back until I had achieved the look I wanted. I really like how the wax stays in all the grooves and brings out all those details. Look at the comparison of the table bases before and after adding the wax. I think it just gives it so much more character. I wanted to add one more step to really elevate the pieces, so I added some gold rub and buff to the routed places on the base using a little detail brush. Next, I reattach the brass caps from the feet as well as the drawer pulls, all of which I've cleaned and polished. The drawers are all pretty dry, so I recondition them using some Dixie Belle's Big Mama's Butter in the scent Orange Grove, and yes, that is the name. And it's not butter, it's butter. I not only treat the drawers with it, I also use it to clean the drawer glides. They have a little bit of rust on them, so I just apply it and rub them with an abrasive pad until they're smooth. I also put some on the runner on the inside to make the drawer glide more smoothly. And here's the result. In the end, my daughter-in-law loved them and asked to purchase them when she and my son bought their first home together. So I gave her a pretty good deal. I think they look perfect in her living room. I remember back when my husband and I bought these, and I was so excited to have such beautiful quality pieces. So I was really happy to have them stay in the family, being used and enjoyed by my children and grandchildren.